Welcome to Nero Hartford.
Well met traveler, welcome to Kaurath. If there's anything I can do to assist you, please feel free to ask.
Hello there. My name is Matthew Gilbert. I'm one of several plot team leaders that runs the Nero Hartford chapter in Connecticut.
Welcome to Nero Kaurath. My name's Max.
Nero is a live-action role-playing game. What that means is that we run around with foam swords and pretend to be knights and commoners and different races throughout the weekend.
My name is Jonathan Marquis. Welcome to Nero Kaurath.
I'm your friend, I'm your ally, and welcome to Nero Kaurath.
Nero is a live-action role-playing game. Think of improvisational theater, but it's constantly going on.
When I first came to Nero, I had no idea what a LARP was or what it even stood for. So LARP being live action role playing and Nero being the New England role playing organization was really a lot of wordy things that I really didn't have any idea what was going on. But I was brought in by 3 of my friends from New York to a small town in Connecticut, just outside of Hartford. And I discovered that you actually can be a warrior, you can be a princess, you can be literally anything that this modern world tells you you can't be here.
Nero Hartford is a chapter within Nero International, one of the largest live-action role-playing organizations in the country. We have several chapters throughout the country. Hartford is one of them. In the Northeast, we have many players that travel amongst the Northeast as well as throughout the country. I was at the first event and I was at the last event.
Fantasy based, you'll find a lot of dragons, a lot of nobility is a big part of it. A lot of fairies, a lot of fae, especially in Kaurath. Not really anywhere else, that's more like elementals, but Kaurath is more fae.
The idea in Nero in general is that you have the skills that you can physically carry out. So you can't jump off of walls that are 10 miles high. But what you can do is you can be a knight who's really powerful, who can fight his orc enemies or fight against the evil of the land and try to take out the ultimate evil in our in-game version of Skeletor, whatever you wish to call him. The Kaurath campaign, we have a very Gadabari-focused campaign. What that means is they are wanderers similar in ancestry to the Romani, but distinct in the fact that while they are wanderers, they are not highly enslaved races. They are not a race of people who were abused for centuries. They are their own people. And in Kaurath, what makes them unique is that they have ties to the royalty of the campaign. So they become nobles and trusted people rather than looked at like snake oil salesmen and bad guys that should be avoided.
Nero LARP is one of the older LARP organizations. It started off here in New England. It's currently the only LARP that I go to, but it's also one that I work for. I'm a member of the plot staff, which means that I help out with all the little monsters who go out and fight players during the events.
In the Nero organization, there are several chapters, but each chapter is generally part of an in-game place called Evandar. It's a kingdom. Kaurath, however, is within the same universe as this kingdom. However, it's its kingdom with its own rules, its own way of conducting its society in game, and the chapter itself has been like this since it started. Up until maybe 15 years ago, every chapter was part of one place. Kaurath was one of the very first chapters to not be a part of the Evandar system and become its own standalone fantasy setting. That's still obviously compliant with the rules and the cosmology of the universe.
Kaurath is a lot different than any real Nero chapter. We're not part of the Accords of Avalon. Well, we are now, but we were not for a long time. Our structure is a lot different than any other Nero chapter as far as the nobility goes. And just the whole flavor of the place. Everybody seems to generally work together simply because we're not just one kingdom. We're 12 different kingdoms, all united under one.
We also have a very fae-focused campaign. That means that we have interactions with Fae, similar to Irish culture and Celtic lore. So they are a little bit nasty, they're a little bit double dealing, but they also have a pact not to interfere greatly in mortal affairs, mortals being the players and being the game. And the Fae and Kaurath are directly tied to and living in Kaurath, rather than being a separate plane of existence. So what happens to the land happens to the Fae, so you'll see a lot more interaction between the Fae and Kaurath itself.
Nero Hartford is a fantasy setting where we are made up of many kingdoms banded together through hundreds of years of war and sacrifice and love and all of the wonderful history that brought us to this point. For me, that history is very important. For you could just like hitting things. Nero being this fantasy setting and Kaurath having this rich history, we all kind of band together and we solve its problems, not only for us in the present or for the future generations, but also for those that came before us. And that's really interesting to me.
When you come to Kaurath, make sure that you speak to the locals, because the locals are very familiar and very proud of their local culture and heritage in Kaurath. So make sure that you reach out to the locals and ask lots of questions.
First thing you're probably going to see is a lot of the veteran players in their full getup. Not stuff like this, but like full sets of chainmail with elegant looking phys rep swords, and it might seem intimidating, but really a lot of people there will welcome you in. So you'll see a lot of people decked to the nines in very fancy armor, but you'll also find a lot of people willing to take you under their wing and just sort of show you the ropes and make sure that you have a fun time.
You used to have to worry about the Barrow Heart because it's basically an entire nation filled with undead. Everything there is undead. Everything there is either necromancy, there's werewolves, there's vampires, there's zombies, skeletons, all kinds of big baddies that aren't really big baddies anymore. They're kind of our friends now. So for the longest time they were at war with all of the other kingdoms, and recently there was an alliance with the Barrow Heart and the other kingdoms. So now they're one of the kingdoms that are part of Kaurath.
Well, when you walk into town, could be a bunch of different things happening. I mean, you may see the Bardic Guilds performing, singing something, or playing music or practicing. You may see some fighting. So you may hear the phrase new player mod, or new player module. That is essentially, it's a quest. It's something that Kaurath has put together for you, new players specifically. Generally, it'll be with enemies of a lower level. So it'll allow you to go out there, experience the game, and experience kind of what combat's going to feel like and things like that, so that you get a good feel for the game before you join the rest of us at the event. So you can also think of a new player mod as kind of your tutorial quest. It's your beginning. It's the way you start. It's where you learn, and that's your beginnings.
When you have a problem with anybody at all, feel free to go to one of our nobles. We have scalds, which are the highest rank that most people attain. However, we do have a High Lord Marshal, and he is outstanding. He is always there with both the law and the wisdom and the duty to protect this land. So going to a noble if you have a question is perfectly acceptable. Going to a guild master or guild mistress, also acceptable. This is just your world to explore. So feel free to go out, ask questions, make mistakes, get hurt every once in a while. That's kind of what we're here to do.
3 tips for new players. 1, everyone's here to have a fun game, and everyone wants to have a good time. So the most important thing at any LARP, not just our game, is definitely to be welcoming and be warm and inviting to everybody you can. The next tip I would offer new players would be to, as soon as you can, figure out exactly what your character is and learn the rules too, because knowing the rules and how they work will influence the choices and decisions you make for your character. And the last tip I would offer new players is to don't be afraid to try new things or think of new ideas or submit new ideas to people in the game and out of game too. This is how the game evolves and changes, and largely if you are the first person to come up with an idea, then you will be the person that will spearhead that idea. And the more people that have new ideas, the better.
Come on down. You're going to see things you have never seen before. You're going to be going all weekend long. They're going to feed you, and the food is good, let me tell you. If you have any medical issues, we got that covered too. We have EMTs on site at all times, and we cater to just about everybody. We have doctors, we have lawyers, we have short order cooks. We have people from 13-year-old kids with their parents, of course, all the way up to 60 years old plus. We cater to everybody.
Let's see, advice for new players. Don't be nervous. You're bound to make mistakes your first time just because you're new to it. But honestly, everyone is willing to help you be the best. Like, I'm an NPC, so I fight all the players all the time. My first event, I didn't know a lot of what the spells were or how the calls worked, but I had everyone else who was a year ahead of me, 5 years ahead of me, 30 years ahead of me. They like showed me the ropes. So if you're nervous about not knowing what you're doing, don't worry, no one does their first time. And you'll always have people like me or the people in plot or the other players who will be willing to take you aside and be like, hey look, I saw that you were doing this and this with your damage spells, but in reality you could do this to make it a lot better.
So I'd like to welcome you to Kaurath. Please come enjoy our campaign. You'll find there's many different things in our campaign that have been going on or have been resolved, and there's some lingering stigma. We have a kingdom that used to be undead, and they're kind of our friends now, but we still have bits and pieces of people distrusting them. We have other groups that exist that are conflicting, but they're friendly sometimes, and if you talk to other ones, they're not so friendly. Engage everything. Enjoy the game around you. Look into the world. If you see something that sounds interesting, try to chase it. And the worst thing that could ever happen if you engage it is that somebody says, this isn't happening right now, or this isn't here. So if you really find something interesting, chase it. And maybe the first event's hard to get through and get into, but I guarantee you the second event, after you ask questions to our plot staff and we get back to you, you will find that the stories you want to engage will come to you.
Oh, one last thing. When it turns to really dark and once you're getting into the very early spring and late fall, please feel free to bring an electric blanket. We would rather have you warm and healthy than cold and miserable.
If you're seeing this, welcome to Kaurath. I hope you guys enjoy our chapter a lot. We work really hard every day to try and make the game as best as possible, and it's really excellent to bring in new people who can bring us a whole new slew of ideas and influence the hobby, not just the chapter, but the hobby itself. And really, that's the goal. Because at the end of the day, we want to facilitate a very fun game before anything else. Hey, thanks for watching.
Don't forget to subscribe. Like us on Facebook.
And visit our website.
We hope to see you at the next event.